The ventures of the Kennard Novelty Company were short-lived. In 1892, in the face of financial ruin, Kennard lost his company to one of his former employees, William Fold.
One of Fold's first public relation gimmicks as master of his new company was to reinvent the history of the Ouija board. He said that he himself had invented the board, and the name Ouija was in fact a fusion of the French word oui for yes and the German ja for yes. But it's much more likely that the name came from the Moroccan city of Oujda. Middle Eastern cities were in fact very popular during the late 19th century.
During a Ouija session, users sit with their fingers placed lightly on the edge of the planchette or pointing device in the center of the board, and questions are then asked aloud.
Okay, now somebody ask a question. Oh, by the way, if you ask a silly question, it won't answer.
According to those involved, any willing spirit present at the time spells out their responses by moving the planchette over the appropriate letter. Of course, this phenomenon has yet to be proven scientifically, and many skeptics doubt the board has any spiritual significance at all.
The Ouija board is really just a pressed cardboard. It has no connection to the spiritual world.
I don't see them as the evil things that some people do. That, oh boy, if you ever touch one, you're going to be haunted for the rest of your life. It's probably a tool just like a pendulum and a crystal ball and so forth that some people can use to help them focus. I don't think there's anything supernatural about it.
Many skeptics of the board attribute the movement of the planchette to dishonesty or the unnoticeable reactions of those touching the pointer. But what of the claims of paranormal activity said to manifest during a Ouija board session?
We believe it's the act of what you're doing that kind of promotes and works as a catalyst for paranormal activity. You're sitting there and you're trying to communicate, and perhaps these things are seeing you do that, and they're going to come out and you're going to get good and bad with that.
Although it's true the Ouija board has a history considered by most to be nothing more than a novelty, there are still many who to this day regard it as a mystical portal to another world or a spiritual antenna said to facilitate contact with all types of paranormal entities, ranging from friendly souls to ill-intended demons.
Well, a Ouija board, I would say we have a little saying about the Ouija board. If you put hinges in the knob in it, we could use it as the door to hell. A Ouija board is like literally leaving your door open. If you don't know what you're doing, anyone can come in. And it's like attracts like in spiritualism. And if you get a bunch of drunk people together with a Ouija board, they're not going to bring through Mother Teresa. They're going to bring through someone at a very low level who may want to scare them and may even want to hurt them. So I would never, under any circumstances, condone the use of a Ouija board.
Well, to us, Ouijas or witch boards are a tool that you never use on a site. Because if it's already active and you're opening a doorway, you're only going to make it more active by opening a doorway for other things to get through. You could become possessed. You could lose yourself. That's a bad thing.
Regardless of the differences of opinion surrounding the use of Ouija boards, one question still remains. Are they indeed capable of producing or facilitating the production of paranormal activity? In the hopes of finding an answer, the New Gravity media team decided to put this ancient oracle to the test.
Well, what we wanted to do is we wanted to bring together not only mediums, but individuals who claim to have experience producing activity with a Ouija board. And fortunately, through the help of Jim Bucknam, a medium for Boston Paranormal, we were able to find a few people that fit that description.
The team enlisted the help of Barbara Safransky, a medium and curator of a small shop in Salem, Massachusetts called Angelica of the Angels. The session was held in the home of Tom Elliott, also a member of the Boston Paranormal Group.
Well, we set up the equipment. We had 2 cameras on tripods and 1 roaming, and we placed a microphone over the table and miscellaneous meters around the room. We put a EMF meter on the table and a thermometer and humidity sensor on the mic stand and a Geiger counter to keep tabs on the background radiation level.
With all of the equipment in place, the session began. Both Barbara and Holly sat at the table and centered themselves spiritually before starting.
3, 2, 1. 1. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 1
Well, at first it started out relatively slow. The pointer was moving and it was selecting a few letters here and there, but it wasn't really spelling out whole words.
C. A.
And from time to time, the pointer would slide right off the board onto the table.
To compensate for the lack of specific responses from the board, Barbara began to interpret the movements of the pointer psychically.
Yes.
She wasn't getting much in the way of understandable responses with the board, so she started to interpret what was happening on her own.
Have you left us? I had a Frank and a William that came in. I feel that this is definitely a male entity that's trying to communicate.
It was right about this time that the pointer started moving off the board regularly. And it was moving around in circles on the table. So eventually they just took the board off the table altogether and let the pointer just run haywire.
It was during this display that something unusual began to happen to one of the people in the room.
There were 2 stationary cameras and 1 floater. I had the right side near the front door, and Joanne had the left near the kitchen. I was doing a close-up of the Ouija board and the tri-field meter, and that's when I heard a thud behind me, kind of like someone was being slammed into a door or something. I turned around and Jim was up against the door, and by the looks of him, he seemed like he was in some sort of distress. It was kind of dark, so I motioned the mic. He had the infrared camera, and I pointed to sort of start shooting behind me.
I'm standing there filming, and Anthony gestured to me to look over at Jim, and when I turned to look, he looked like he had trouble breathing. So I switched the camera over to infrared, and I kept an eye on what was going on with him.
No! You're not coming through me. You do not speak through my voice. You understand? You respect boundaries. Got it?
It appeared as though whatever was communicating through the Ouija session was also attacking Jim Bucknam and trying to speak through possession.
It was definitely an interesting experience. I mean, I really don't know what was happening there, or even if I'm convinced that there was any spiritual activity. None of the equipment we set up registered anything out of the normal, and of course that's not to say that nothing paranormal occurred. It just simply means that nothing measurable occurred. And I think that to study something like this takes time, and I don't know that we will ever be able to prove whether a Ouija board produces true activity or not, at least activity that's convincing to the general public. I think that it really comes down to one simple question. What do you believe?
Much like mediumistic ability, a basic belief by those involved is fundamental to the overall perception of a successful Ouija or dowsing session. But for a haunting, belief is typically the end result. A haunting can manifest in many forms and occur for a variety of reasons. Although the symptoms of each separate case can be similar in nature, they often have a defined pattern which researchers use to establish a generic haunting classification. Among the most common classifications is a phenomenon known as a residual haunting. During such an event, witnesses may report many unusual occurrences, such as apparitions, voices, footsteps, and other ghostly anomalies that very often leave them convinced they have encountered a true spirit energy. But in reality, a residual haunting is not believed to be a haunting at all. Two of the signature traits typically associated with this type of phenomenon is the anomaly's lack of intelligent interaction and the general tendency of the activity to repeat itself over time. One particular example of this can be found here at the Houghton Mansion in North Adams, Massachusetts. Home to not only a Masonic lodge, the mansion is also the haunted headquarters to the Berkshire Paranormal Group, a local investigation team which regularly conducts tours of the mansion as well as independent and joint investigations with other local groups. One particular residual haunt can be found in a specific area of the mansion's basement where the shadow of a small spirit is said to appear on a regular basis.
It's funny because you'll see light from outside. That we have that one street light, and it shines in and just gives you just enough light in here to maybe make out like the silhouette of this door. And then you'd be standing there, and yes, maybe it's your eyes playing tricks on you, but it's still kind of bizarre that it's about this high, and everybody can see the same thing. It comes out. Sometimes you have to like just peek out around the corner like this, and you can see it block the light, and then it comes back like this, and then you see these little like light sparkle sometimes, and sometimes the little shadow, it comes out like this, and you can see it, and it disappears, and who knows, sometimes we think maybe it comes out to, so we don't know.
There were about 5 of us down in the basement, and we set up our chairs, and my group had infrared cameras that we set up to point down to the doorway, and we just sat there and waited.
What did you think you saw occur?
Something come out around the wooden edge, the edge of the wooden.
How far?
Halfway up,
Like a shadow?
like the width of a head.
Now it's totally dark.
Somebody just flashed over there.
See how dark that is now?
I mean, it could be your eyes are tiring too, from staring.
Yeah.
After a while, people started mentioning that it looked as though shadows were starting to move, but when I looked down at the camera monitor, I couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. So it seems as though if you sit in the dark for an extended period of time, your eyes are going to eventually play tricks on you.
But I used to go UFO hunting with Betty Hill. Yeah, you'd be staring at a star or a light off in the distance in the woods. And you know how your eyes move, and you suddenly see it start dancing?
Yeah.
But it's not moving at all, It's your eye movement.
Right.
It's doing it.
Yeah.
It's very hard to control.